So yeah, that phrase turning point really could not be closer to the truth. It was literally an about face for me. So I'd spent 10 years in communications, climbing the ladder, moving around, getting promoted, with this really clear goal of wanting to be a head of comms by the time I was 30, which I reached. But by the time I was 31, I'd had 2 breakdowns, like total mental health crises, and been signed off work for about 6 months, and just realised that I couldn't continue to exist and work and live the way I had been while maintaining some positive mental health. So yeah, the company was going through some changes, and I basically asked them to make me redundant, and then set up my own business. And that was 6.5 years ago.
Wow, that's a lot to have been through.
Yeah.
And then you asked for redundancy as well. That must have been a big moment as well. How did that feel?
It was interesting. I think while I was signed off, I'd realised that basically the organisation was very well intentioned, and a lot of organisations they want to support their people's mental health, but they just didn't know how. And like a lot of things that were going on, again, while well intentioned, were really not helpful to me in my recovery. And while it's no employer's duty to help their people like recover from their mental health, that's our individual responsibility, but it is an employer's duty to make reasonable adjustments that allow people to stay healthy while working. And so I realised that there was this gap in the market for helping employers support their people, and that's how my business started, was working with corporates to help them support their people's mental health. And then it sort of grew into supporting self-employed people to look after their mental health while they built a business. And it's grown again as my kind of mental health has stabilised and become more manageable. It's grown again into helping women, like ambitious, powerful, amazing women, build and run businesses that are sustainable, not just financially, but energetically, and allow them to actually live while they're working.
Love that. I love that, because I certainly know of small business owners who have left the corporate world to do their own thing, and now they're busier and more stressed than ever.
Yes.
And that was never the plan. Of course, that was never the plan. And people leave corporate jobs or just, employed roles to become self-employed and run their own business for various reasons. But I don't think it's ever to become more stressed.
Yeah.
I've never heard that as a reason. It's not always because they're looking for an easy route either, and I think it's important that we talk about that too, that running your own business is not easy, and it's not free of challenges. And it can include long hours as well at times, because you're juggling a lot of things a lot of the time. But yeah, we definitely haven't intended to jump from the frying pan into the fire. Yeah. And I know that you talk a lot about working with female founders and female business owners, but also you talk a lot about the hustle culture being fueled by patriarchy and capitalist systems. And so for those of us who haven't thought about it in that way before, could you explain what that actually looks like day to day for women in business in particular?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting what you said about, it's not easy running your own business. And yeah, that it's not like you can sit on your bum doing nothing. But part of kind of, I think, capitalism's indoctrination of us is that for things to be easy is wrong, or for things to be easy is bad or naughty or shameful. And capitalism, the capitalist system, relies on us seeing productivity as the most important thing and the most valuable thing about us. And our level of productivity being a huge marker of our value and our worth. And I think that's part of what drives this hustle culture, is these beliefs that have been fed to us by the systems in which we live. And most of us around the world live in a capitalist society, in a capitalist system, which says that your productivity is the most important thing about you. And if you're not productive, then you're not of value. And so I think it's really easy for us to fall into that trap when we run our own businesses of thinking, well, if I'm not working, then I can't be earning. Or if I'm not working, then I'm not doing it good enough. Or if it's not really hard, I'm not fulfilling my potential. And it can be easier. And it's not wrong to want to make work easy. It's not wrong to want to work less and live more. But to be able to do that, we have to wake up to the fact that this is maybe not a belief that we agree with, and something that we get to choose differently from in our own businesses. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I can't deny that it lifts a flag for me, because there are times I've been thinking, oh, wait a minute, I don't have much to do today. Have I missed something? That's my first thought. Not that, okay, I'm on top of things and I've not much to do today because, I really knocked it out the park yesterday. My first thought is often like, I bet I've missed something. Yeah, and then, trying to take a day off that doesn't look like a day off at all.
Yes. I just shared some content this morning about, like, if your Friday's off, start with a quick email check and popping into Slack in the afternoon and sharing a few stories for visibility, then that isn't really a Friday off. But what I find really interesting about what you said there is, like, your thought is, have I missed something? And the kind of counter to that thought is, oh no, I just had a really stellar day yesterday. Because it's interesting to me that there isn't a thought coming into your head that's like, but it's okay for me to have a quiet day. Like, nothing's going to fall apart if I have a quiet day. And this idea that we can't have a quiet day, that if we do have a quiet day that something's wrong, that the business will fall over, is kind of what keeps us in this, like, capitalist grind. And the whole, like, patriarchy sideswipe as well just, like, adds to it and kind of, gives it an even bigger snowball effect, because, we, again, as we live in a capitalist society, we live in a patriarchal society. Men occupy most positions of power. There are more men called Steve in the FTSE 500 CEO positions than there are women, and I know, which just makes you want to vom, doesn't it, bloody Steve? But really, how I see in many of my clients patriarchy kind of infiltrating our businesses is, we feel afraid to say no, or we feel afraid to set boundaries, or we feel afraid to not please others, because as women over millennia we've had to be pleasing and pliant and kind and nurturing to survive. And although that need for safety is less acute now than it has been in previous generations, like, it still affects our behaviour and the way that we think about our businesses, and we worry that if we set a boundary that someone's going to think we're a bitch, or that if we raise our prices that people are going to think we're greedy. And so these two things together of, like, must keep working, must work all the time but can't charge too much, can't say no, must do exactly what the client wants, just, like, works us up into this, like, exhausted frenzy.
Wow, yep. And then how do you see that actually playing out, in small business owners?
But, like, the way over the years that I've developed of tackling this, or like helping people to tackle it for themselves, I call it the me first method, just to have, an easy way of it tripping off the tongue. But it's basically figuring out how to put yourself first in your business. And I think about that in 3 ways: in beliefs, in decisions, and actions. So I often see people saying, oh, I can't charge that much, they won't think I'm worth it. Or I can't charge that much, they'll think I'm greedy. Or I can't get them to move that session time because they'll think I'm flaky. Or, I'll just squeeze them in because they really need me to see them. And all of these thoughts, decisions, and actions are basically putting others before ourselves. And they're basically parroting those beliefs that we get from patriarchy and from capitalism and from ableism and from white supremacism and all the other systems of oppression that have become part of the fabric of the world that we live in. But yeah, I see it playing out in people essentially not feeling able to be confident or feel powerful or feel empowered, and therefore taking decisions and taking actions from those places rather than from the place of, it's okay for me to have a Friday off. I am allowed to charge what I want and need to charge to make my business and my life sustainable. I can say no because that protects my life. Like, all of these kind of behaviours and beliefs that we have are really, I think, come down to the patriarchal belief that you must put others before yourself, and the capitalist idea that we can't be of value unless we're working.
Gosh, and of course, when that comes to business, then if we're not charging enough, then we're not running at a decent profit, the profit that we need or want to run our businesses at. If we're putting others' needs to be seen at certain times and whatever before our own, that can cause problems in families. If you're then that knock-on effect, you're moving things around with kids or whatnot to accommodate that, or even just for yourself, that time just didn't suit you for whatever reason, but you're Like you say, you're not putting yourself first, you're putting the needs of clients first.
And it's like death by a thousand cuts. Like every time you say, oh, I can squeeze you in, or every time you say, sure, no problem, when someone misses a deadline, or every time you say, oh, that's fine, even though it's not fine, you're telling yourself that you don't matter, and you're telling yourself that they're more important than you, and you're chipping away at your own sense of self-worth. And like, it's just not a way to live a life. We're here for a short time, like not a long time, and so we need to enjoy it as best as we can.
And these are just all these sort of subtle ways that we end up becoming our own worst bosses.
Yes. Yes.
You know, when you've potentially left another employed role to work for yourself, and you've potentially then become a worse boss than you might have had before. Yeah, and then these all sorts of beliefs keep us stuck and keep us small in our business, don't they?
And you know what you said around, you know, if we don't charge enough, then we're not operating at a good enough profit. But equally, like what adds to that is if we don't, I believe anyway, and part of my like me first method is you start with your capacity, like how much do you actually want to work, how much would you love to earn, and then how many clients can you work with or projects can you work on within that time, and therefore kind of you can get your base unit pricing that way. Because if you don't start with your capacity and yourself, then you're always going to be overworking to earn the money that you want to make, and you're going to be constantly in this cycle of like, I'm working loads but I'm not making the money I want, because you haven't started with how much you want to work. And so if we want businesses that not just pay our bills but, you know, pay us and help us to live a lovely life, we've got to charge more, set boundaries, be clear about what we will and won't do, who we will and won't work with, stop subjugating ourselves to others at every possible turn.
And do you think this affects women who work in an employed role just as much as female small business owners, or have you seen a difference?
I definitely think it affects women just as much in the workplace, and I have and still do work with employed people as well, but it affects them in different ways. So it affects how they feel they can or need to communicate in the workplace, both around the day-to-day and around, you know, negotiating salaries or pay rises or job specs. But the difference, I think, is when you're employed by yourself, when you run your own business, you get to make all the decisions. You have all the power, all the choice, and you don't have that in an employed role. And so it's devastating to me when people who are self-employed don't make decisions for themselves, because they're in this incredibly, and I and you and all of us who run our own businesses are in this incredibly privileged position where we can choose what's right for us, and yet so many people consistently don't because they don't feel like they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, from someone who's experienced, you know, breakdown, is it under the burnout umbrella what you went through?
Well, I would say it's like a few steps past burnout, to be honest. Like I had like a combination of anxiety and depression, and it affects your brain's ability to function. So I couldn't read, I couldn't, like, cognitively my brain wasn't working, like I couldn't make decisions, I couldn't read, I couldn't like write emails, I couldn't function. And then physically it affected the way that my body worked. So I had digestion problems, I had migraines, I couldn't brush my teeth because I felt so sick with anxiety. Like, I feel like burnout is, I think of it like this sort of dip, like this, and burnout sort of here and breakdown is like at the bottom of the well, and then you have to like claw yourself back up. But yeah, it basically just made me unable to function and made me really physically unwell as well. And yeah, I don't feel like anyone should have to reach that depth of the well to be able to get to the point that I got to, which is to say, enough, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I will do what I need to do and what I want to do, because the alternative is that, and that's not what I want.
Absolutely. And what sort of warning signs should people be looking out for? As you say, we want to avoid getting to that depth of the well. So what sort of things, for anyone listening, should we be watching out for to avoid that?
I think some of the first warning signs are, it's this feeling of constantly chasing your tail and feeling like you're not on top of things. And, you know, the reality is we're never going to be on top of things. The list literally never ends. That is the stuff of life, is the never-ending list. But it's more than having the list. It's the feelings that come with the list. It's the feelings of fear, of worry, of anxiety, of something that I see building a lot in clients is resentment, that, you know, they're working really hard and it's not feeling like it's working for them, or that, you know, clients are taking up loads of their time when they don't want them to be, or you start to resent the thing that you've built. And then things like, classic kind of physical signs of deteriorating mental health are trouble sleeping, random aches and pains, digestion issues, your cycle can be interrupted. Those are symptoms and signals that would, if I heard a friend tell me that, I'd be telling them to go to the doctor and get a diagnosis and some support. But in your business, it's this kind of mix of feeling worried, stressed, resentful, feeling like you're not really on top of things, and often struggling to focus or make what feels like meaningful progress.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jo. I think that's really important to point out for anyone who's recognising some of the stuff that you say there, to think, well, where am I? And how can I avoid heading towards that, which we're going to talk about more in just a little second. Yeah, and this hustle culture as well. I thought about this recently. And I was thinking and hoping that we're coming away from that. I do see a lot of changes, on the online space, market our businesses on social media. And I think a few years ago, when I first became self-employed, about 11, almost 12 years ago, there was a lot of hustle culture and working hard, that's how you got ahead. And I do see that it's changed, but do you think it's still glamorised online, or are we starting to wake up to that?
I feel like it's less glamorised, but I still feel like it's just accepted that if you want a big, booming, brilliant business, you've got to put in the hours, you've got to work all the hours, you've got to sacrifice this. It's nothing that comes easy is worth having. I think there are more voices saying it doesn't have to be that way, but I do think it's still kind of accepted, even though it doesn't have to be that way, that part of the norm of running a business is that you're knackered all the time.
Okay, and I think, I'm pretty sure everyone listening, a lot of our listeners are still working in an employed role and building their business. Some are fully self-employed, so I think if we were all honest, we can relate to that. That feeling of, if we're not working, it's not working. Yes. And you've got to put in the long hours to get the reward. So let's start talking about it not having to be like that. You have got our full attention, Jo. Full attention, our ears are up. So tell us a bit about your business, and particularly your Me First method that you've mentioned there, and what does it actually look like in practice for a small business owner?
Well, the thing is, when you're still building your business, or when you're working an employed role and building your business, is the perfect time to be thinking about this stuff, because I have clients come to me who are 5-10 years into business and are done in, the business takes too much from them, they are working way more hours than they want to be, and they just don't know how to turn the tide, and it's literally like turning a tanker. We have to make small incremental changes. But when you're at the start of your business, you can set it up the way you want from the beginning. And that's really the essence, is, okay, how do you want to work? What do you want to provide? How do you want to provide it? And so the Me First method goes through beliefs, decisions, and actions. So it's building the belief that you can make work easy and still make it pay. Building the belief that you don't have to be... I work with so many people who want to be of service, and that's admirable, but you don't have to be of service to the detriment of yourself. Building the belief that you can build a business that works for you, and that's not wrong. And then looking at, okay, if I want to build a business that works for me, what hours do I want to work? What services do I want to be offering? How do I want to work and how do I not want to work? What sort of people do I want to work with? How much money do I need to be charging to give me the life that I want the business to give me? So basically baking in from the beginning a business that actually works for you and not against you. So for me, from the very start of my business, I have only had 2 client days a week. I have 2 client calls on 2 days a week. So that means my max capacity for one-to-one clients at any time is 8. And I run my group program on a Wednesday. So they get weekly coaching with me on a Wednesday. So I know that that's my energetic capacity for supporting other people. And so I've baked that in from the beginning into my prices, into the way that the offers are structured, into the boundaries that are around the offers, and that I communicate with people. And it's part of why people want to work with me, is because they want businesses that they only have to coach 2 days a week. But if you're charging, 50 quid an hour, you can't do that. And you will have to work more and more hours. So deciding how you want to work from the beginning, and then building your offers, your pricing, your boundaries, your structure around that, is the way I teach people.
And so many people setting up a business start with a business plan. I was talking to a friend the other day there who's like, it's all talks just now, but we've got our business plan, like we know what they want the business to do and whatever. And it's interesting because if I'd had this conversation with you and was now having that conversation with her, I might say, okay, but have you thought about how you want it to look like for you? Because the plan she was talking about was very much how it would look like, what it would look like to the client and what the business was, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe what we should be doing, you need that, of course. You need to know what your business is going to look like and what's going to offer, but built into that should also be what it feels like and looks like for you as well.
Yeah,
and
because...
not just, this is the business plan and I will do anything it takes to make that work.
Yes. Because you can't do anything it takes for very long. That is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Like, you will burn out, you will hit a wall, and then the business will be buggered.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah,
should have asked that before.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
If you don't build a business that you can sustain, you won't be able to sustain it.
Yeah.
And you can only run at the wall for so long. And so, yes, we want the business to feel possible and fun and whatever you want it to feel like. But the way to make it feel that way is to build it that way.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about building the belief that you can, it's about taking the action to make it possible.
It makes so much sense, doesn't it? But we're just not talking about this.
Yeah.
I think there's also, sorry, I'm about to talk, that's kind of, you're starting out your business, and I'd like to talk next about how this looks for the business owner you mentioned who's a few years down the line. But a thought that just came there as well is, if you're a self-employed female and you have a male employed partner. I spoke to a business coach about this a while ago, just chatting about it. What did she call it? She says it was like the pain Olympics or something at the end of the day. Who's worked the hardest that day? Is this something you see with clients where, like, you've got the most supportive partner in the world, right? He's not judging you for what you've done that day, but you feel judged and you've got to, like, I did this, I've not had a minute and I've been so busy. Have you come across that before?
Oh, yeah. And that is just classic capitalism. You should feel guilty if you're not absolutely strung out and exhausted by the end of the day, because your purpose in life, for capitalist worker bee, is to be as productive as possible for as long as possible to keep the wheels of capitalism turning. And so, like, that feeling of, you know, I've got a slower day, but does that mean I've missed something? Have I done something wrong? Did I not work hard enough yesterday? Or it's okay because I did work hard enough yesterday. Like, the anti-capitalist sentiment opposed to that is, great, lovely, I can have a quiet day. I'm just going to take the day off, actually, and go and sit in the sunshine and read my book, because I don't have to be working all the time. But that belief has to be paired with action. So if you don't want to be working all the time, then you have to build offers that allow you not to. So my group offer, for example, I coach on a Wednesday, but outside of that, they have support from, like, a whole host of, I call them interventions in beliefs, decisions and actions that they can work through. And so the way that I've structured that offer means that I don't have to be working all the time.
Yeah.
And yet people are still getting value from it and I'm still getting paid by it.
Yeah.
But if I didn't want to be working all the time and my main source of income was one-to-one sessions, I would have to be working all the time to be making money. But that's not how I want to work, so I don't structure my offers that way.
Yeah, and that's where it all comes down to, isn't it? How you build your business.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that tanker that you were talking about. The woman has been in business for a long time and has only ever known it to be like this. And now she's just fed up with it. You mentioned it, you described her. The business has taken more from her than she's getting back. It's just not how she imagined it to be at all. And then comes to you. So then how do you go about turning that tanker around?
Yeah. So first of all, I generally am like, show me a diary and let's build in some breaks because you're tired. And like, taking action and making decisions from a place of exhaustion and resentment is, like, not a great place to be. So, like, immediate intervention is, let's try and find some buffer time, break time for you. What are some, like, immediate things you can get off your list? And then it's looking at primarily, like, how are your offers structured? How much are you giving to them? And how can we tweak and restructure them so that they require less from you? And then the same with your operations. How does your business run? How much are you doing that someone other than you could do? And I have this exercise intervention called the shit list. And I get them to write down everything that makes them, like, grimace or makes them procrastinate or makes them, like, groan. And that could be anything from an email from this particular client to scheduling my my Instagram posts to
Yeah.
fanning around on the back end of my website to like literally anything. It can be
What a
person, system,
liberating
process.
exercise that must be to really get honest with those things.
And then you can be like, okay, well, everything on that list, we're either going to stop doing, we're going to delegate it, we're going to systemize it, or we're going to change it. So for example, if it's like scheduling your social media posts, that's really easy. We can like, you know, if you already have a VA, we can ask your VA to do that. If it's like one particular client that like you get emails from them and you're like, then we delve into, okay, why is that? What is it that's making you make that noise every time you see an email from them? Is it because the boundary that you have with that client isn't held very well? Is it because they're not taking the action? Like what is the root cause of that issue? And then how can we alleviate that in your boundaries and in your services? So we basically do a bit of like diagnostics. Why is it all such a knotty, difficult mess at the moment, and how do we unknot it all? And that's like one of my specialist skills, like unknotting all the threads.
Love it. That must be really satisfying to see that process start to finish.
I absolutely love getting my mitts on people's businesses. Love it.
You're the opposite of minding your own business. You want to get
I've got no minding my own business chill, none whatsoever. Yeah, my clients generally are like, so my two specialist skills are like unknotting all the knotty threads and asking like simple but deep questions where my clients are like,
yeah,
and
you got me there.
Yeah, she goes there. So my clients do tend to like very quickly get into like, we're just very open and honest with each other from the beginning, which, you know, I think hopefully people can see from my website and my Instagram, like I trade on honesty. I talk about my breakdowns. I talk about my mental health. I talk about everything, with a few exceptions. You never see my boyfriend on my Instagram, but sometimes I talk about him, but I don't share him. But yeah, I trade on honesty. I'm a brutally honest person in my business and in my life.
Good. And could you share an example of a client you've worked with? You don't have to name names if you don't want to do that. Who you've taken from A to B, you know, and broken them free from these limiting beliefs, this hustle culture that's always on, and what changed for them?
So someone that I work with at the moment is amazing. They're a voice coach, voice like breath, accent coach. And when we started working together, they were doing well, and their business had been running for maybe 3 to 5 years. But they did feel like they needed to be like working loads to be making the money. They had like 4 or 5 different income streams, which is brilliant. But in one of those income streams in particular, they were really giving too much for too little. It was taking up a lot of their time for not enough return. So we restructured that, what was a one-to-one offer, into a group offer that they run 4 times a year, which is like they've run it like 4 times and it's been sold out every time.
Amazing.
And then their core signature one-to-one offer kind of didn't really have a lot of structure. It didn't have standardized pricing. It was kind of they were getting really amazing results, but it wasn't that easy to market it, and it required a lot of brain power from them to, each time they onboarded a client, not just to onboard them, but to take them through the process that they had with it. They kind of hadn't like solidified into a process. And so we did that, and we again like standardized the offer so that it was very clear what it was, what you got, how much it was, and over what period it happened. And again, they're like sold out with that. And then interestingly, they started branching out into corporate work. And to begin with, this person was like really questioning themselves, and really, essentially, they just had this kind of belief that like that was maybe too much, you know, like too lofty ambitions. And so we kind of, again, one of my things that my clients say about me is like, I am really honest with people. So with that client, I was like, what I'm noticing is the way that you're talking about yourself and your work and relating it to this corporate client is like the total antithesis of the way you talk about your one-to-one private work. And so we kind of like dug into that and just help them to shift that belief that like this is something they can do and that they're brilliant at, and they're just doing it in a different environment or in a different way. And so now they're doing more corporate work, and they are basically working less than ever and earning more than ever, which is like the literal dream for a client, like dream case study. And yeah, they're just amazing. They're so cool. They're going from strength to strength, which is like totally their own work and their own thing. It's just that I've been like, maybe we could look at this. I think maybe we could do that. So yeah, like that's like My dream case study.
Wow, love it. Love that. And so if someone's listening and thinking, right, okay, I want that too, work less, make more, who doesn't really want that?
Yeah.
What's a small shift they could take just now? You've mentioned the sort of first thing you would look at is let's get some breaks in.
Yeah.
Is that what you would suggest? What's the first thing
Yeah.
you'd say go and look at today if you want to start moving this in a different direction?
So 2 things. First thing, I have like a free resource which is called the Me First Diary Reset, which will help you basically look at your diary and be like, where is all the time leaking away to? And it's like a set of questions that I basically get you to kind of audit where your time is going. And then the next step is like taking action on that audit and figuring out what you can stop doing. But I would say another really good first step is the shit list. So just get a blank piece of paper or however you like to get thoughts out of your head, whether it's typing or writing or, you know, drawing. And I want you to write down everything that, makes you grimace, makes you groan, makes you not want to do it, makes you procrastinate, makes you want to fake your own death and run away to Peru. Like, write it all down. And what you will see is, I bet there are a load of themes. So what are the themes?
I know,
like,
all the
really
back
ask you what
office
they
thing.
are.
Like my group opens once a month, and there's so many back office buttons have to be pressed to make that happen.
Bloody buttons.
Bloody buttons. And I do have a VA, but then we changed this process slightly, and then school holidays kicked in. I've got young twins. And I couldn't actually get my head around it enough to even explain what I needed her to do.
Yeah, that's
so that is on my list now, to hand that off, because she will love that. She loves buttons and back office stuff. And I'm just like breaking into a sweat every time I need to look at it.
And you know what that is? I hear that so much. It's like, but it'll be easier for me to just do it than delegate it.
Yeah.
It isn't, because it's taking up so much of your brain space. Like, that dread of the buttons is taking up way more brain space and energy and time than just the pressing of the buttons.
Yeah.
And so my question back is, okay, how can you make it really easy to hand it over? Like, do you word vomit into a voice note and then put it through ChatGPT and get it to summarize it and send it to your VA? Do you, like, what's the easiest way that you can get that off your shit list, essentially?
Yeah.
So
I think for me, I love a brain dump, pen, paper. Brain dump. It's
You'll love the shit list.
So freeing. Just write everything down in no particular order, all over the page, just out of there. And there's some science, I know, between the pen and paper link, which is a little why I created. I've got a pen to paper planner that I created. It's a social media planner, because it's cathartic. That feeling, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Of getting that out through the ink onto there and just taking a deep breath. So I think that's what I need to do, brain dump first. And then you get this realisation that it's actually not as bad as you thought it was, which is nice. No,
never. But also think about, like, if you could just get 2 things off your shit list, how much time, energy, capacity that will give you back. So I would say do the free diary reset or do the shit list. And I need to record a freebie on the shit list, because I do think it's really powerful.
Yeah, go for it. I will include all Jo's links and whatnot in the show notes, but where can we find said freebie? Because I will be going to look for it.
So I will give you a link to go for it, or you can just respond to any of my stories on my Instagram with the word reset, and the lovely ManyChat will send it to you in the DMs. And I'm Get Wildly Free on Instagram. So
awesome. All those links will be in the show notes, which will be linked below for you. Now, we are going to have listeners who are listening just now and are like, okay, that sounds lovely, but that's I can't do that. Like, I have to work this hard right now to get where I'm going. What would you say, speaking directly to them?
Life is too fucking short to do that, friend.
Boom. And she just dropped the mic and walked away.
But, like, not to go super deep and dark right at the end of the podcast, but I've had 2 mental health crises before I was 31. I'm 38 now. And my dad passed away when he was 60 and I was 16. So we are here for a good time, not a long time. Do not sacrifice your happiness on the way to some arbitrary point that you would just push back again and again and again.
Yeah.
We have to learn to actually live, not just work.
Gosh, you do. I mean, get as dark as you like, honestly. No holds barred on here. We want to talk about the real stuff. It's so true. My husband actually worked with a man. He's worked in his company for 25 years. He's the complete opposite of me. He will never leave. I pivot constantly in self-employment. He was an apprentice for this man, and then they worked together until they worked eventually in an office side by side. He was so looking forward to retirement. He had all these plans for retirement, where this is going.
Yeah, I do.
And then woke up at the start of this year with a lump in his neck.
Oh,
Had been perfectly healthy until then. and he passed away a few months later. He was due to retire next year. It doesn't get sadder than that.
No.
You know, he was waiting to do all these things when he retired, and that time never came, you know. We need to be mindful of this.
We are literally here for a blink in the blink of an eye, and like, what a fucking waste of a life if you don't take advantage of the time that you have.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be sat at this desk 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. That is not what I want my life to be. I want to travel. I want to try all the food in the world. I want to swim in all the seas. And so I want to build a business that lets me do that, not just in terms of how much money it pays me, but the time that I get to live my life.
Yeah, your time is also a currency. Your time, energy, money is not the only currency out there. Yeah. In fact, money, we could say, is the easiest because it's renewable. You can make more. You know, there's always more money out there to be had, but there's not more time. It's as simple as that, you know. Yeah. And so if someone is listening and saying that, listen, this is not going to work for me, like I'm in the hustle mode, I'm working all the hours, if that's what you want, then crack on. But if it's not, then you have to sit down and look at that. Set aside, you know, we're talking like set aside an hour here to do this shit list that Joe's talking about, do your diary reset, really think about why did I start this in the first place, and what do I want from it? And if you want to earn £1,000 a week and work 3 days a week, make it happen.
Exactly.
Start there and work backwards.
Yeah, and that clarity is perfect. You want to make £1,000 a week and work 3 days a week or 3 hours a week. Fine. Okay. What offers can you provide in 3 days a week that will net you £1,000? What's your unit pricing? And then go and market it. And to those people who are like, I can't do it, I'm hustling, I'll see you in a year's time. I'll be here.
Joe will be there. Yeah, absolutely. So we know where we can find Joe. I'm going to link all that in the show notes. That has been, I know we have ended on some deep, dark conversation there, but you know what? I don't care, because that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about it all. We're not here to talk about the fluffiness. We're here to talk about all highs and the lows. And I did say that at the start of this conversation, you had some highs and lows to share with us. Yeah, it gets to be easy, and it gets to be the way you want it to be, if you're willing to really deep dive into that and be honest about what you want it to be. And then it's going to take a bit of work to chip away at that sort of, that, what's the word, that feeling that this holdover is that we've got, that's telling us, to that voice that's telling us that it doesn't work like that. That's probably where the hardest work will be, is chipping away at that. It can be done.
You know how to set up offers, you know how to market them, you know how to price them, even if you don't feel like you should price them that way. Chipping away at and shifting that belief that you can't, that's the thing that you have to do day after day after day.
Yep. And is that something then that obviously is something that you work with business owners and employed people to do then in your Me First programme?
Yeah, so my Me First Accelerator is my group programme, and basically there's like 3 sets of audio interventions. So like the belief rewire is where we do that. And the reason I've made them like, the reason I've made them audio, and B, the reason like they're there so that you can go back to them at any time, is this stuff does take time, and it takes practice, and it takes repetition. And really what we're doing is we're creating new neural pathways, which are just new beliefs and new thoughts in our brain that become habitual. And that takes time. It's like building a muscle. And so, there's like 10 key belief rewires that you have like a little 5-minute audio for that you can listen to over and over again. And it helps to rewire those beliefs and shift thought patterns and create new pathways in your brain.
Yeah, I love that. And we have a lot of experience in neurology. Our young son had neurosurgery when he was just 2. He had the left hand side of his brain, his left hemisphere, completely disconnected to stop epileptic seizures, and he is still today constantly creating new neural pathways when he had to relearn to talk and walk and do all sorts of things. And so we see that happen every day. It is very, very possible and very powerful.
Incredible to think that your son had such huge neurosurgery and his brain is just constantly rebuilding and remaking itself. That's amazing.
It's incredible. And he started school the other day in a mainstream school, which we never knew if that would be possible. He skipped away in. He's just doing amazing. So yes, I'm all for that we witness that happening every single day. Your brain is incredible.
So
incredible. So yeah, I guess ending on that note is probably the best. Don't settle if you're not happy. Don't settle for where you are. Change it. And we are so privileged as business owners to be able to change that. Absolutely. So take the bull by the horns, or take the notepad by the pen and go for it.
Yes,
absolutely. So is there anything you think we've not covered today, Jo, that you'd like to put out there?
Covered so much ground. No, I don't think so. Just, like if you're self-employed or if you're building your own business on the side of employment, you have all the power. You can make all the decisions. And so make good ones, please.
Absolutely. So, yep, the show notes will be detailed with exactly where you can find Jo, where you can find her freebie about the shit list and the diary reset. Go have a look at it. This is the first thing I'm going to do when I come off this call, because I'm super curious what that looks like. Yeah, and just, Jo's business is get wildly free. Get wildly free. If that's what you want, then go after it. Thank you so much, Jo, for joining us today. That was an incredible conversation, and I know it's going to resonate with so many people listening today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.